Welcome to the Livfiit Listens podcast, a safe space of growth, personal development, and overall wellness with your host, Olivia Catania, diving into the realms of all things health, conscious living, mental expansion, and much more. This podcast is designed to help you evolve into your best self and live fit. Let's get into the show. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Livfiit Listens podcast. We're on a little mini streak here, okay? It's not much, but we have two back-to-back episodes, 2 weeks in a row. Like, we'll take what we can get. A win is a win. So I hope everyone is doing very well. Today's episode is honestly a very, 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 very vulnerable one for me. And yeah, there's not really another word for it. I just felt a little bit like, a little bit shy and like vulnerable to share this. But after like further thought, I'm like, the point of this podcast is to help other people. The point of this podcast, like, it's not about me. It's about trying to deliver powerful messages that actually can impact people and help people. And as much as vulnerable as this is, this experience helped me so much. It was so powerful, and I can only hope that it can do the same for other people. And it was very like an enlightening process for me to go through that I want to push to you guys in case you by any means feel pulled or called to go on like a similar journey and you want to try this for yourself to aid in your own healing process. Like, by all means, I would love for you to do that. And I would love to, my point is to give you guys this resource so you can use it to help yourselves as well, just like I use it to help me. I also want to do like a little bit of a disclaimer because I feel like, I don't really think it's crazy, but I know that there's some people who may not be in this space just yet. This is really going to be a heavy episode around meditation, inner child healing, kind of energy work, somatic work. So if none of that really resonates with you, if you don't have any interest to be in that space, I honestly would recommend skipping past this episode because, again, I do think this is a very vulnerable episode, and I think this is going to be targeted towards a very niche group of people who are interested in this sort of thing. When I actually went through this meditation, I just so happened to have been vlogging that same day. So I did share like a little snippet of it on my YouTube channel, and when I was like kind of starting to explain it, I was like, I need to be telling this to my podcast people. Like, those are the ones who are really going to get it. So that is why I wanted to bring this to you guys, because I feel like if it's bound to hit anyone who's going to resonate, like, it's going to be through this podcast channel. Before we get into it, I want to share my gratitude, which is really my own healing that's been going on. Like, honestly, the past month at this point, I've gone through a lot of childhood clearing, which could be a whole other podcast in and of itself. And I guess without getting too far into it right now, I just feel like since I'm now a whopping 26 years old, I've had time to kind of pause and like experience some stillness in my life. And there's been enough space now between my childhood where I metaphorically, but also kind of literally feel like I'm in the space now to actually be able to separate and like look back at my childhood and really see things for like what they were and like really actually sort through things. And in this season of kind of stillness and of space, it's allowed things to come up that have been so suppressed for so many years in my childhood. And I've been able to also look at it, I think, since I'm more mature and grown and all of this, I think I'm able to look at things through a different lens, which has allowed me to actually really go through the healing process of these things rather than something I just have always carried with me that I thought just always were how they were going to be, I guess, for the rest of my life, where I didn't even, like, a few years ago, I didn't even really realize there's something that I could release, if that makes sense, for my childhood. And now, having grown over the past few years and where I am now, I'm realizing that there is actually a lot that can and should be released and cleared. And I've been doing a ton of that, specifically over the past month, which is what's taking us into this podcast episode, obviously. So really, this all started with me listening to a podcast episode, and which I will also have it linked in the show notes of this in case you want to really go to the source. But it was from a somatic healer, I believe. It was my first ever podcast, or really any sort of piece of content I've ever seen from this woman, and that was the only one I have consumed since then. So I don't really know much about her, but she shared this episode. Really, it was a snippet of her working with a client and how she basically went through kind of an inner child meditation to kind of reparent and connect with their this will all make sense as we continue to go forward, but it was a meditation to kind of reparent and connect and heal her inner child, while also coupling it with somatic therapy, which, if you don't know what somatic therapy is, this is something that's new to me as well. So of course, always feel free to do your own research, but it's basically like a different form of therapy, where we all know the therapy we all know is talk therapy, when you're meeting with a therapist and she's usually asking you questions, talking through things, helping you see blind spots, increasing your awareness to certain things, looking at things through a different perspective. And I have had some experience with therapy. I did that for about like 5 weeks. And I've also done a lot of kind of my own self-paced therapy, in a way, of my own meditations, my own journaling, my own self-reflection, my own kind of awareness and all of the things. And I have heard that somatic therapy can really be great for people who have already done a lot of this kind, I don't want to say surface level in a bad way, but just like kind of that surface level form of therapy, of talk therapy, and like gaining initial awareness of your wounds, or gaining a initial awareness of your patterns and why you are the way that you are, and like where things stem from. All of that is kind of like a baseline form of therapy. And for the people who are very self-aware, which I think a lot of you guys listening would relate and resonate, which is also a huge reason why I want to bring this to you in case you haven't heard of somatic therapy. For those people who already are self-aware, who already try to do their work on their own, etc., somatic therapy is really great because it really gets to the root of your emotion that's stored in your body, and uses different techniques to actually clear that energy that's stored within us that continues to resurface. Because what happens when we're in traumatic events is that we store, like, the emotions that we feel, everything about that traumatic event, we store within our actual body. And I think in our society, we're so caught up on the mind, what are we thinking, the brain, all of that, when our body is actually really, really, really wise, and it's the second half of our equation. And a lot of the trauma that we experience is stored in our body. A lot of the traumatic emotions that we've experienced are stored within our body. And so we think a lot of, like, I guess this really explains how we constantly think, like, I've been in therapy for 3, 5, 10 years and I still struggle with XYZ that keeps coming up, which I'm not saying that, like, a part of that is normal, but also the other piece to this is it's the same thing of, like, if you were trying to take out the weeds in your garden, if you were to continuously just keep chopping off the tips of these weeds that were growing, they're always going to continue to grow back because we never got to the root. And in this analogy, cutting off the tips of the weeds is basically what we're doing in normal talk therapy, but we're never actually addressing the root and where it's actually stemming from, which is not all the time, but sometimes it is that the root is that we're really holding on this I can't speak today. We're really holding on this traumatic event, and this traumatic emotion within our body, and that's the root. And that's what somatic therapy is supposed to do, is really goes to the root of the wound, take that out of our energy body so that we can actually really clear it, and it won't continue to pop up as often or as intensely. So that's kind of like the background of it. And I really perked up my ears to somatic therapy because I really resonate with that. And I think a lot of my childhood stuff, like, I was so young when a lot of this stuff happened, where it's like literally feels so integral in, like, my being and who I am and my foundation and, like, my formation as a human, that I feel like somatic therapy would be really, really great for me, because again, these things are so deep seated within me that I don't think talking about it is really getting to the root of how deep this stuff really stems within me, which is where somatic therapy comes in. So, like I said, I've been dealing with so many, like, childhood wounds and beliefs that have been resurfacing, and just things my inner child has been holding on to for so long. And I just realized, like, if I really want to move forward in my life, I really need to, like, get to the root of these things so I really can actually move on, instead of having them continuously, like, resurface however many months later, So basically, I did a really, really powerful meditation that included, like, inner child kind of reparenting, and also somatic therapy to really clear this old energy and fear, really, at the end of the day, that I've been holding on to in my energy body, that has really been honestly holding me back from being able to, like, move forward in my life. So I literally wrote down this whole entire thing because, you guys, this was the craziest thing that's, like, ever happened to me. This has been my craziest meditation I've ever experienced. This was like a full-on 30-40 minute meditation, and it was a doozy, to say the least, in the absolute best way. And like, spoiler alert, I was sobbing, and I really think it did something, which is really why I want to like share it with you guys, because of just, again, how powerful it was for me. So again, I was basically using this podcast I listened to as a guide. So for me, what I've really been one of the things I've been struggling with is this concept of marriage and moving forward in like a committed lifelong partnership, because that is something that I know I want on a soul level, but it's also something I carry a lot of fear around, because I grew up with divorced parents. They divorced when I was like 4 years old, and it just was a terrible, like really gross, bad, like it was a bad divorce for like 20 years. Like no one could move forward. There was so much hatred, so much disrespect, just it bled into everything. Like it was so messy, it was so chaotic. All me and my 3 siblings were completely in every crevice of the divorce. Like we were super involved, and it really was just a disaster. And that has been a really like hard thing for me. And I just remember it really always was really hard for me to cope with, really all throughout growing up. And because of that, I genuinely feel like I've already gone through a divorce, which has made me fearful of going through another one / putting my hypothetical children through a divorce, which I've also been doing other healing work around that, where I know that's not necessarily true, or like just because if a divorce happens, it doesn't mean it's going to be that same event, or it doesn't mean it's going to happen that same way or be that traumatic. But anyways, I digress. So really what started this was I really wanted to get to that root of how I was, this fear that I feel about a higher commitment, like a lifelong commitment. So I literally wrote this whole entire meditation in my journal, and I'm honestly just going to read it to you guys in sections, then also like kind of stop and explain more, just because I literally laid it all out on here anyways, and I feel like I'm a bit scatterbrained today. But so let me set the scene. Again, this is a whole meditative journey that I went on. If you're doing this, you want to have a very safe space where you don't feel like someone's going to walk in on you or whatever, wherever you feel peaceful and comfortable. For me, this was early morning, just because I always feel the most like connected to my soul and higher self at that time. I'm sitting on like our little deck that we have here that's shaded. I'm outside. I am sitting upright, cross-legged, hands on my heart, eyes are closed. That's like me setting the scene. I started with doing just some like normal breath work, just deep breaths in and out. I always do that because it helps me get in the present moment. And I started this by kind of asking myself, more so almost like a journal prompt, as if someone was asking me this question of really, what do I actually want out of a marriage? And then I kind of went into deeper and deeper layers as I went deeper and deeper into the meditation. So we kind of start with like more so a reflective journal prompt in a sense. Then we went into the somatic therapy piece to gain some more awareness. Then I went into some inner child reparenting. Then I went into more somatic therapy to actually release the emotion. I will get into all this. I understand, like, I'm realizing this probably sounds absolutely insane if you don't really know what's going on, but I think by the end of this episode, and if you listen to it in its entirety, it'll make more sense. I'm trying to walk you through it step by step so it makes sense, so you can actually conduct this practice on your own. So I wrote in my journal, I don't even know where to begin. I uncovered so much. I started by asking what I'm most looking forward to with marriage. And my biggest thing was safety and security. Finally feeling safe at home and just feeling at home. I don't think I ever felt at home as a kid. I don't know, I just was always handed off to other families. So I uncovered 2 fears from that. 1, I either won't feel happy or fulfilled in my marriage, or 2, the marriage will fall apart and end in divorce, and I won't ever feel that safety and security that I wanted so badly as a child. So from there, I kind of worked backwards to try to address this fear that I'm having. I wanted to label it because I was always like, I don't know, I feel this fear of commitment, like lifelong commitment, but I didn't really know why or like what about specifically. So asking what I wanted in a marriage allowed me to work backwards of like, okay, well then clearly I'm fearful of that of that never happening, So then I was able to address and label my fear and kind of in doing that, it just allowed us to know, like, okay, this is what we're working with. Now we know where to go from here. So next, again, I moved into that somatic piece, which again, all of the emotions that we experience are also in our body. And if we're not doing the things to like actively clear it, it's going to always stay stored within us and like subconsciously be running our lives. So next, this was a big piece that I got from the podcast. I then asked myself, this fear that I'm feeling, right, around commitment, where does this fear live in my body? Where is it? What does it look and feel like? Does it have any colors? What is its density? Okay? So number one, where does this fear live in my body, right? Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel it in your gut? Do you feel it in your throat? Do you feel it down in your, like literally wherever? Where do you feel this fear in your body? So for me, I felt this fear in my chest and my throat. It was black and it was so dense and tight. Like I remember like it literally just felt like I had a rock around like my chest and my, like literally right in the middle of my like chest and my throat. Which that was also really interesting to kind of have that awareness, because that was the first time I really ever sat and reflected and gave myself the chance to like really experience and see where my emotion is being held in my body. So that was also really cool. Then the next question is, how old is this fear? How old is this version of me who's holding on to this fear? This is where it kind of blends into this whole inner child trip. This is like crazy because I'm telling you guys, like I'm obviously 100% sober. Like I'm literally on the freaking porch in my robe. Like this was just absolutely insane. So how old is this fear? How old is this version of me who holds this fear? And when I asked myself that question, I just saw this like such a little girl. And I didn't say anything because again, a part of this modality is really just giving your fear, your anxiety, whatever it is, just giving it the chance to be held. Like just allowing yourself to simply just sit with that emotion. Because so often these quote unquote bad emotions, we just want to run from it. It's uncomfortable. We want to get away from it. We don't want to feel it. We want it to stop. And it's kind of like the same thing how you feel. Like, don't you want to feel heard and seen? Like, even if you're upset and you know there's a solution or whatever, you just want to be like, can I just like have a minute where I can rant and vent? Like, I don't want a solution right now. I just want someone to like see me, to hear me, and validate the state that I'm in right now. And then maybe once that happens, I'll be ready to talk and move forward. But like right now, I just need someone to meet me where I am. And these pieces of ourselves who are experiencing these emotions want the same exact thing. So a big piece of this is also simply just sitting with your fear, sitting with your anxiety. And so when I saw this little version of me, I went and just sat down next to her. I was like outside. We were on like a little grassy hill, and she was kind of sitting with her feet up. Her arms were kind of like around her legs in a sense. Like she was just like in a ball. And so I kind of mirrored her and I sat in the same way. And so first I just sat with her. And I remember, I don't want to get emotional in this podcast because I like, also spoiler alert, I was sobbing during this, which I'm about to get to. So I just sat down next to her. And again, trying to really just sit with my fear of like validating this version of me who is scared, who feels scared of these things that I just have continuously been living with, this younger version of myself who's fearful of this. So when I sat down next to her, I felt sadness come over me. I just felt sad. And that's when I realized I was like, this fear that she's been carrying, that she's, quote unquote, so scared. She's really not scared. Like really, she's scared really just because she's sad. Like this fear is actually stemming from sadness that's manifesting as fear because she doesn't know how else to process it. So I thought that was very interesting because like genuinely, as soon as I sat down next to her in my meditation, like genuinely this wave of sadness came over me. So I just sat with her for a second, again, trying to just offer her that comfort, that presence, someone who was there for her. Who's like, that version of me didn't have someone who was there for her, hence why she was never able to process these things. So then I remember I put my hand out to her, because again, just to kind of sit with her, just like to hold her hand, to hold space for her to be with her. And when I reached out my hand, she touched it. And she literally jumped onto my lap and like hugged around my neck, and she just started to sob. And so naturally, so was I, because I'm her and she is me. I was sobbing. Like, and this little girl was holding her arms like around my neck. We were just crying and crying and crying and crying. I just told her, I was like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel sad. And I just kept hugging her and telling her, like, it's okay. I'm here for you. Like, again, just trying to validate her and have someone be there for her, be there for this version of me who never had someone to support her emotionally. So I literally just held her and we cried and cried and cried. And this is a prime example of how we store these emotions in our body elsewhere. And so I knew like this version of me still feels sadness around this whole situation, and she'd never had the space to like clear it, to process it, to move forward. So that was me. Like, it felt so good to cry like that and to like literally sob and like to get it out. Like, I just knew it was trapped within me. It was trapped in my body. It was trapped in my energy, that like I just had to get it out. So I just let her cry. I let her cry. I was crying just to clear it. And when I was hugging her and like we were sobbing, and she was, because now she was kind of like on my lap. Like, again, I'm still like in a little, like my knees are up. So she kind of came on my lap and was hugging me. And when we were crying and everything, like I noticed like her legs were so little, they weren't even touching the floor. Like her, like I just heard, she had her little feet like on the sides of my hips, like the age you are when you have like little Velcro shoes. Like, she was so little, her feet were just like dangling at my hips. Her feet couldn't even like touch the floor. And that's when it hit me of like, this is like a really, really young version of me. Like, she is tiny, who's holding this fear. Like, anywhere from like 3, 4, maybe 5 years old, which also hit me really hard because I was so sad that such a small version of me was carrying this energetic and emotional burden. But at the same time, it also made me cry more because it made so much sense, because I was around that age when my parents got divorced, which was absolutely so insane, mind-blowing that this version of me was what was coming through. It was just so insane and so powerful. And so I'm getting emotional again, but so then I asked her why she feels sad. And once she kind of calmed down, once we cried and like got more of it out and she calmed down, I asked like, why do you feel sad? And she said she feels heartbroken. She's sad that her parents aren't together, and she's heartbroken that her family is broken. And she said she feels like she has no one to go to. She has no one to talk to, no one to confide in. And she feels abandoned. That was like a word that came through, was abandoned emotionally, which I found so interesting because I would have never said that before. I always kind of thought like abandonment meant like your parents weren't there, or they didn't love you, or whatever, or like more so like a neglect, and in like almost an intentional way. And my parents were always there, but in that time when everything was just a cluster, they couldn't, like, obviously it was hard to attend to 4 children emotionally. And I think also since I was so young, they just assumed I didn't know what was going on, or it didn't impact me the same. But the thing is like, this is also a true testament of like our bodies and our consciousness know more, even if our conscious mind isn't always up to speed, if that makes sense. So I found that really interesting. And again, I know it doesn't make sense because like a 3-year-old wouldn't necessarily say these things. It's more of like an intuitional, like what she's actually truly feeling. And so I really just kept validating her feelings, and I told her that I'm so sorry, and just like really just consoling her as I would console a friend or my own daughter, pretty much. And that's kind of where this reparenting realm kind of comes into play. And eventually when she stopped crying, I just like took time to really reframe her perception and beliefs and takeaways by being able to give an update on where life took us and how things worked out. And I found this to be really powerful because, again, it's like these versions of us are literally just stuck in these traumatic phases of our lives, and they like aren't up to speed. Like this version of me, little 4-year-old me, like didn't know how things turned out when I'm 26, and that our parents actually are able to be cordial to each other, and we actually spend Christmas now all together, and that we have a family group message all together. Like, she didn't know these things, right? So I tried to update her on things that like did work out, and that things did get mended, and kind of the benefits that came from that really hard time. And like, I wouldn't have the amount of depth that I have now as a person. I wouldn't have as much compassion and relatability, and being able to relate to other people if I didn't go through this hard time. Like, there's reasons why my parents are better off for it. There's reasons why my siblings are better off for it. So I kind of just like reframed to her of how this really scary traumatic event in the moment turned out to be something that had a lot of actual beauty and growth in it. And when we have these pieces of us who are still living in the past and like never received an update on things and still think that the pain is still there in the same way, and they're just not up to speed of how things have alchemized. So I really just told her how the heartbreak actually served us and how the traumatic event actually like helped us all as people and the good that came out of it. And I told her that I'm here for her emotionally, that I'm always here to comfort her. I will not abandon her. I'm here to protect her and guide us both. And she has me. I'm here for her. I see her. I hear her. I validate her. And now it's really my job to lead us through life now. Like, I am here to protect her. Again, this is this whole like inner child reparenting angle. And I asked her if she can trust me to make decisions in life and to lead us in life and to make decisions in love as well. And like just asking for her trust to really allow her to come with me through these next phases of life for the rest of my life, rather than feeling like she can't trust me to come with me and constantly feel this like unrest within myself. And so I asked her if she can trust me to make decisions and to lead us, and she said yes. And I told her that our fairy tale life isn't about getting every single step right or perfect. It's about seeing every step through a perfect lens. We can't always control life circumstances, but we can always control our perspective and reaction. And that's how we will live our perfect fairy tale life. And the thing is, I already am living my life, and it is beautiful. So I asked her if she can be brave and courageous to make decisions with me and come with me, and she said yes. So then I asked if she's ready to release this fear and sadness that she's been holding on to for so long, and she said yes. So from there, she kind of got off my lap, and we sat next to each other. We were cross-legged, across from one another, and that big dense black rock of fear that I felt, because now it's like so crazy to explain, it's like so trippy, but so like the fear that I was or like this fear that was like, where does it live within my body? Once I met that inner child, that version of me, it kind of like, now the visual changed to seeing that black rock in her chest, in her throat. And then I was carrying that piece of her in me, if that makes sense. So now we're like back to the somatic therapy piece. And so now that black ball of fear is in her chest and her throat, and I'm like looking at her. And so I like took it from her. Again, this is all like a visualization now. And I put it in the middle of us. And I started rubbing this was like not in the podcast episode to do this, but for whatever reason, it just was my like natural instinct. I started rubbing my hands together to create like heat and movement, just to kind of start to alchemize that emotion of fear and the energy within that, just to like start to give it some movement. Because I just feel like, when you heat up anything, that's when water boils, So it just felt right. I started rubbing my hands together, generating heat and some movement in the energy. And we really just did breathing. So with each deep breath that we both took, we would visualize the big black rock like getting bigger and expanding out. So we just kept doing big breath works. I continued to rub my hands together, and each time we breathe in, it was like a balloon. Like the rock would get bigger and it would get less dense. The color would get lighter and it would get bigger. And really what this process is doing is just dissipating this energy and allowing it to alchemize, and so then it can release. So it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and expanding out and out and out. And every time it got bigger, it would get less and less dense, like I said, like blowing up a balloon, till eventually it was a big circle around us. And then eventually it just dissipated out like a mist, and it was gone. And after that, I visualized an empty spot now where the black was, where that black rock was. And I also did get this in this podcast episode along from like other teachings and stuff that I've seen, where when you clear anything out of you, we are light beings. We are made up of light. So when you clear anything out, you want to fill that back up with light. So it's not just like this empty space. So then from there, I visualized the empty spot where the black was filling up with light. And mine actually mirrored with her, which I found really interesting. Which, not to get so crazy, but I'm aware this episode sounds so crazy. Anyways, at this point now, like I'm sure the people who thought I was crazy have stopped listening now at this point. But I've also heard things about how in these traumatic events we miss a piece of our, like, oh my gosh, it was also a crazy revelation of this, because I've heard this as well with other teachers of how when we're in a traumatic event, a piece of our light body breaks off. And I never really knew what that meant. And this is kind of exactly what they meant. And once I went through this and I realized I gained a piece of light back within myself, I was like, oh my gosh, I just gained back a piece of my light body. And it was just also a crazy moment. But so this is what it means, of how it makes so much sense, of like a piece of your light body breaks off and you carry this like heavy, traumatic, dark emotion energy within you, and you lose that piece of your light body. So it's important to do these like energy recoveries, do what I'm doing here to actually get back that piece of your light body to make you whole and complete and like as powerful as you're meant to be in your full form with all of your light. So again, when I visualized her where the black was, it was filling with light. Mine did the same thing, but once she like filled up, I almost like visualized putting herself back in my chest where I originally felt the black spot within me, if that makes sense. And that's when I saw like kind of the light in my chest get relit and put back into place. I'm kind of almost picturing like in Monsters Inc., you know, when Boo's door gets completely shattered or whatever, they put it through the shedder. And then I think it was, oh my God, why can't I remember the big Sully? I think then he like uses his nail to put like the one little tiny wood chip piece back in there to make the whole door, and it lights up. Like that was the visual for me in terms of like getting a piece of my light body back and putting the light back within my chest. So I wrote in my journal, it was like her chest filling with light made the piece of her in me fill with light too. It was like her chest filling with light made the piece of her in me fill in light too. And that was really, really powerful. So I said in my journal, I got a piece of my light body back. So anyway, that was honestly, after saying this out loud, I'm a little bit like, Olivia, are you okay? I'm honestly great. Like, I felt so relieved after that. I felt so great. Again, if you're not into this form of healing modality, that is totally okay. If you want to say it's placebo, awesome. Maybe it is. Whatever works, you know? This made me feel so much better. I genuinely think it shifted something in me. I have felt so much lighter. Like, right now, it's like making me emotional again. Like, I felt such a relief and release after, and just so much lighter, like truly. And no pun intended, maybe it's because I got a piece of my light body back, but no, I really think there's a lot of truth in this. And I think for people who went through really deep-seated foundational childhood things, and it doesn't even have to be from childhood, like just like really deep traumatic things that played a really big role in your being and identity as a whole, I think something as deep as this is really powerful, and I'm going to say necessary for quite a few people. Again, this podcast episode is not going to be for everyone, and I should have prefaced that. But I think for people who feel stuck, who feel like there's certain things that they just cannot move past, or things that they feel like have been really eating away at them, or just have kind of always been a subconscious or like subtle anchor in the background, I really would highly recommend trying something like this. Like, I really, again, have felt a shift within me. I have still more healing to do and processing that I never really had the chance to do as a child, because I just never had to face it. And now I'm at the doorstep of things that I really need to face in order to move on with my life. That's what I think it feels like. I feel like for so long I was able just to carry the stuff with me, and it didn't matter. It didn't really impact too much of my life. But now, like, the age I'm at and like the next phase of life I want to go into, it's like I'm at the doorstep, and it's like you can't fit through the door with all your bags. So like now's like, oh my God, it's kind of like when you are going to check your bags at the airport, and they're like, you're overweight and you have to like rearrange things in your bags. Like, that's what it feels like. It's like, okay, you're really about to like go board the plane now. Like, you can't keep taking all this shit with you. Like, you need to do something about it. And I like had to go off to the side in line and like open up my suitcase and like throw away some things, put some things in my carry-on, like resort things so I can actually move forward, where like before it didn't really matter when you're like, It doesn't matter before you get to the airport. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that was so much. I feel a little bit chaotic. I do feel so vulnerable. Like the thing is like I wouldn't really share this with I wouldn't share this with a lot of people at all. But for some reason, when I'm saying it in my room alone to a mic, it feels like more manageable. It feels just like an auditory diary in a sense. But again, I'm hoping that this lands. I'm hoping that this finds someone who's really meant to hear it. And I hope that it can be just as powerful as it was for you. And that was, again, a really big thing that made me to record this, because as vulnerable as it is and really intimate, it's like, I am so glad this other woman posted this podcast episode, because it was exactly what I needed. And I'm hoping one of you guys listening is like, I'm so glad Olivia was brave enough to share this, because this is exactly what I needed. So just to do a little bit of a summary quickly of the process, not of my whole story, just the process, so that you can, again, conduct this yourself. First, you're going to, because again, this for me was really in the realm of marriage, just because I know that was like really something that my inner child, I knew this root of that was really in my inner child. But it obviously can be from anything. So I want you to start off by asking yourself, like, what am I afraid of? What am I anxious about? Like, whatever this emotion that you're really feeling heavily, ask yourself, like, what is this stemming from? Why are you feeling that way? Just to kind of like get yourself into the zone, into the whole reflective mode. Then from there, I want you to ask yourself, where does this fear or this anxiety live in my body? What does it look and feel like? Does it have any color? And what is its density? Okay, so then you're going to reflect on that. Find where it is in your body. Again, and this isn't something to force. Like, simply just observe, ask yourself these questions, and you're going to be amazed of what just simply comes through as truth that you just somehow know, that you see, that you hear. It's just crazy what happens when you like sit in stillness with yourself. So then you're going to ask yourself, how old is this fear? Is this anxiety? How old is this version of me who holds this fear and this anxiety? Maybe if you're really anxious about, public speaking or something, or you have a big presentation at work and you have like crippling anxiety and you're like, dude, I'm over feeling this every time I have to speak at work, and you're going through this process. Maybe this version of you who holds this fear is 8 years old when you had your very first presentation in elementary school. And this version of you is holding on to this anxiety because there's a core memory when you were 8 years old, you were giving your first presentation and there was 3 girls in the back who snickered and laughed. And you don't really actually know in hindsight what they were laughing at, but your 8-year-old brain took that as they were laughing at you and making fun at you. And then that created and developed a core memory that you aren't good at public speaking. And it created this traumatic event that people are going to make fun of you no matter what you say. So that's kind of what I mean by like, how old is this version of you? There's a certain version of you who really who experienced this initial trauma, who's still holding on to this pain, this anxiety, this worry, this fear, whatever it is. So that's the next question. How old is this version of me who's holding this fear, who's holding this anxiety? Then you're going to want to sit with this version of yourself. Again, allow this version of yourself to be heard, to be seen. Allow your fear to be validated, to be recognized. Just sit with it. Give it your time, hold space for it, give it your presence. Just be with it to validate it, just like you want someone to validate your emotion so that you can then feel more ready to move forward once the time comes. But at first, you just want someone to sit with you, okay? From there, you kind of want to just create this space, right? This is where different things are going to come through. That's like for me, my inner child jumped on me and just started sobbing. Like she really just wanted someone to give her that space, to give her that time, to give her someone to confide in. And I was that person for her. So give this space. Like this doesn't have to be textbook, and just allow your younger version of yourself, your inner child, to come through and let them tell you what they need. For me, my inner child needed a freaking hug, and she needed someone just to say, I'm here for you. And I'm sorry that you're sad. And I'm sorry this situation is so sad, because she never had that. So maybe your inner child is going to need maybe just a holding hand, or maybe your inner child just going to need some advice. Maybe your inner child is also just going to need a good cry. Maybe they're also going to need a hug. Okay, but give them that space to tell you what they need, and be the person to give that to them and be that kind of reparenting figure. So then I would recommend, this wasn't in the podcast, but it was really powerful for me. I don't think it was in the podcast, but then again, go into this reparenting mode of once you acknowledge how your inner child is feeling about these things, talk to her from what you know now, right? You're simply just talking to a younger version of yourself. You understand how you're feeling and how you felt better than anyone, but you also know how to comfort this younger version of yourself more than anyone you know, right? And now you have more information as adult than this younger version of you. So tell her what she may not know. Tell her what they maybe made assumptions about. Tell her maybe how this traumatic or scary event that maybe was really honestly scary and traumatic, tell her how that actually worked out for the better. Tell her how that actually helped you as an individual in adulthood. Tell her how things actually worked out and got better, no matter in whichever way, just so she can actually be up to speed with where life is now, rather than having this version of you and this piece of you who's still constantly living in the past, simply because they never received an update on things and they just think the pain is still there through this in the same level of potency and in the same level of destruction that it was. They don't always realize that things have gotten better, okay? So that's a big reparenting mode. Allow her to change her perspective, get up to speed. Let her know that you're going to be there for her, that you can protect her, that you will be there to help her, that you will be there to comfort her, that you'll always be there for her. And ask her if she's ready to trust you, to come with you through life, if she's ready to move forward, not from such a scared place all the time. And then ask her if they're ready to release this fear or this sadness or this anxiety, whatever it is. And from there, again, remember where you initially saw this emotion within you. Take it from wherever it is in your inner child's body. And you want to take some really big, deep breaths. Every time you breathe in, you want to visualize this emotion getting bigger and bigger and expanding until it's eventually outside. It's bigger. The circle of it is bigger than both of you guys. It's blowing up like a balloon. And every time it's getting less and less dense. Continue this until it's gotten so big that it just eventually has dissipated out into mist. And then after that has been cleared, you released the fear, the anxiety, wherever. You're going to want to fill this empty spot within her. You want to visualize it filling with light. And again, I didn't really necessarily have to do this. It just kind of happened that I just felt the urge to like put this piece of her back into me, which gave me my light body back. So again, give yourself space to however this is going to play out for you. For me, I kind of mirrored her in the sense, and by her filling her chest with light, it made the piece of her in me fill with light too. And that's really how you were able to like truly get to the root of this emotion and like clear this version of you who's really holding the root of this emotion, so that you can clear it, move on as your full, truest, lightest self, and stop reliving and recreating the past. So anyways, I'm going to shut up. This is the longest podcast episode I've posted in so long. I love you guys so much. My throat is getting hoarse because of how much I've been talking for an hour straight. I feel like this is going to land for such a small amount of people, but you know what? That's still really freaking powerful. So I'm sending you guys so much love. I honestly don't have an affirmation for today. More of like a story time episode. I love you. You're so brave and strong and courageous to be on this healing journey. I know it can seem so intimidating, but it's truly how to live an intentional and fulfilling and whole and complete life. So thank you guys so much for watching or listening. I'm sending you so much love, and hopefully I will see you in my next episode. Peace out.